Alright, welcome back. Today I messed up everything potentially. I did things to the wiring of my setup, so I hear myself on the monitor. If you don't have any audio, please let me know. If this is just me pantomiming again, please let me know. My goal for today is to take this one project that I have, and I will turn on TypeScript. I will make TypeScript go really mad at me. Honestly, I'm a bit of a TypeScript skeptic. I've never really used it much, and I think for projects that I do just by myself, I won't need it much, honestly. But if I ever go back into client projects, TypeScript is a requirement almost today. And what I did in this project is every component, it's a next.js application again, every component is already a TSX file. Every helper function is already a TypeScript file, but I never turned on strict mode. I just did the bare minimum, and now we're gonna make TypeScript go mad by setting it to just give me all the errors. And that's a valid approach, because if we don't have it go too mad at us in the beginning, it's easy to make a transition from a JavaScript code base to slowly use some TypeScript in there. And if you want to make the transition easy, you say, just, let me do some of it, but you don't get all the benefits that you could out of TypeScript by limiting it to that. So what I have here, and you're gonna hate my setup. I feel that anything TypeScript related is pretty VS Code heavy, and we are gonna stay on the command line for today because I haven't figured out the right combination of plugins to make working with TypeScript in VS Code easier. And honestly, I haven't done it in Vim either. So this is going to be painful. This is going to be a lot of manual work, but we're going to make it work. What I have here is a TypeScript, where is it? atsconfig.json. atsconfig.json, and I changed this line that says strict, used to say strict false, and change it to strict true. Now, when I had set it to false and I ran my script that does the type checking, npm run type check for this project, then it only had very few complaints. That's gonna show up in a second again anyways. But when I turn it on to strict mode, let's say strict true, and I run them again, I don't feel like checking this. And I run that again. Then I get a whopping 101 errors. And I don't plan on resolving all of those today. Let's say we give it let's time box it for about an hour and see how far we can get with that. I want to get the number down from 101 to, let's see what we can do. And if we look at this list, there's plenty that we can do, but scrolling through it, we see a lot of them say parameter order implicitly has an any type, parameter rec implicitly has an any type, res implicitly has an any type. So by turning on strict mode, we turn off the check that says no implicit any. So before it was fine if we didn't define a type for something, it was just whatever. But if we are in strict mode, whatever isn't cool anymore. So we need to say this isn't we can be explicit. We can still be explicit and say I don't want to define what rec, what order, what session are. I'm gonna tell TypeScript by hand, any, this can be an any. This can be anything that's whatever's passed in here is fine. So explicitly setting it to any would resolve this problem, and we could get rid of a bunch of them already. We have another implicitly has a type any here. Same here and here. So we would already go way down from the 101 that we have. Is that the point of TypeScript? Not really. So we want to, let's see how far I can get. Give those proper types. And then the others, I implicitly has an any type because type of global this has no index signature. That looks exciting. I have worked with TypeScript before, but that doesn't mean anything to me here. I find these error messages to be super cryptic. But hopefully, by doing this today, I'm gonna get a bit better at it, at least. Argument of type null is not assignable to parameter of type string or undefined. So I'm passing null to something that either can be a string or undefined. I don't know what you want me to do here. So if you have any ideas, if you see me doing something very stupid, because again, I don't really know what I'm doing, let me know in the chat and we can figure it out together. Now, when I quickly skimmed this earlier, there was one that I thought we could have a look at to begin with. In my layout component, for example, so in components / layout tsx on line 7, column 3, binding element children implicitly has an any type. Let's look at the layout file, why don't we? This is the layout component. It's not going to set the world on fire. It exports a component called layout, which takes children. Now, I'm not defining what children are, like what type is children of. And that means that it just assumes implicitly this is an any. And just being an any isn't cool, so we are going to set it to something. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the way I do that is I take this object here where I define the children, colon, another object, and here I say children can be, let's say, string. This is, of course, wrong, because I doubt children are string in here, but let's run another type check. And this is where I said earlier, you're gonna hate this setup, because I'm gonna have to run the type check over and over and over again. That's not gonna be super fun. And I don't even know if I can limit it to specific files. Can I? Because I think this passes everything on to the TSC, whatever that stands for. And can I give you a list of files to look at? Common commands, TSC, okay, TSC, app tsx, app ts, ignoring tsconfig JSON? No. No, what? Why would you not look at the tsconfig JSON? Compiles the specified files with default compiler options. Not really. So I want to limit it to just this file to look at. I want to blur out everything else. I want to tell it, please only show me the arrows for, or the warnings sometimes, for this layout component. I don't know. So let's say we are going to tell it components and layout.tsx. Nope, that wasn't it. That was not it at all. TSC project, do I need to pass you a... What was the file? So project, this we pass to it. Compiles the TypeScript project located at the specified path. Yes. What else? Not all, not... Okay, project we do. Target, no. Can I give you a list of files? Is that cool? I don't know. I'm not going to look this up. This wouldn't make for very exciting viewing, so we are going to ignore it. Option project cannot be mixed with source files on a command line. Okay, so because I have Cypress in this project as well. Let's look at my package JSON. Because I have Cypress in here as well, and I couldn't make one TypeScript configuration work for both the regular project files and the TypeScript tests, I need to pass this project parameter to typecheck, to my typecheck script, and for the other one that checks just everything in Cypress. Is there something in my tsconfig where I can limit it to files? You know what, at this point we might not even... I could... Okay, yeah, I guess I could limit you here and say, just give me layout. No, give me components. Right, this would probably do it. But this would mean I'd have to manually go in and no, that it did something. What's in the layout? Nope. What's in the layout? I have a footer, I have a header, and probably because I have the email subscription form in the footer, that's why it's complaining about that as well. And it has the container. Okay, so that's pointless. Let's abort. Let's ignore that. We'll always look at the output in here. So if we run a type check, we still get 101 errors. And if it's maybe I picked the wrong starting point. Maybe it was silly to pick an error from like somewhere in the middle. Okay, lucky. Components, layout, TSX. It's not the line that we looked at before, but the expected type comes from property children, which is declared. What do you want from me? Okay, so something at least, it's in a different file. It's in the underscore app TSX is complaining to me that children is expected to be a string, is not a string. I remember that I did something to this project before. I had this in here somewhere, but I do not remember where. So I'm gonna just randomly check a few files. This isn't it. Header isn't it. So I have some TypeScript definitions in here, some types in here. Probably not definitions. For the subtitle and the title of the header, those I declared to be strings. Do I have something where I already define what children are? Okay, here children were a string. That isn't helpful. Close this. Where else could I have passed children? On the pricing card. Yes, okay, cool. So I have a pricing card. We don't even need to look at this project in the browser, but it is an online store on which you can buy products, and I have a card. Yeah, no, it doesn't make a difference. And I have a card that shows you this is what it's gonna cost. This is the buy now button. This is a tag. This is a label. And I can pass children to that. Children here is declared to be of type React Node, and React Node is imported from React. I'm just going to take that as is, and we're going to do the same in the layout component. So we are going to import React Node from React. I mean, bear with me, I do not know what I'm doing. This looks right, does it? We're going to run the type check again. And hopefully it's not 101 anymore. If I'm at 100, it's already... Okay, we're at 100. That's good. That's excellent. Now, do we have something else where it complains about... Because if this was an easy fix to this one complaint, we're going to repeat it at other places just the same. Let's look at the components that it... at the properties that it complains about here. None of those say children. It's probably some... I could now manually... Okay, I admit I haven't figured out a good way to search across files in Vim. That's what I usually open VS Code for. And I might as well do that now. We might as well do that now. You know what? Let's not make this more complicated than it needs to be. Let's admit Vim defeat. And let's open VS Code. We're gonna do the exact same thing. We're just gonna search for children. Now every file that contains... where's the layout? Every file that contains both children and children colon something, that is already defined. That already has types on it. So I can see on the pricing TSX, we have it here. Okay. Cool, yeah, that's good resizing there. That's excellent resizing. And we're missing it on the breakout TSX. Here there is no types here. We see it Now VS Code is complaining. What's it complaining about? Implicitly has an any type. No quick fixes available. That is not ideal. But we know that we want children to be declared as React Node. No. See, that's... I never really... Okay, if I go to... This symbol probably means imported from here, okay? Right. I don't do semicolons and I don't do double quotes in my JavaScript code. So this one's done. We have another one here in the code. We're gonna do the exact same. Children, React Node, and this one. Cool, let me manually change that so it fits with the rest of my code. Same as the container. Children are a React Node, and I hope this is gonna get a bit more exciting in a bit. For now, we're just gonna go through the low-hanging fruit. I know I can pass... Okay, we have something else to do here. I know I can pass children here. I can probably adjust what it imports this at, right? So a detail can receive children and a title. And when I pass a title to something, I would usually expect it to be a string. So we're going to go string. If that doesn't work, I hope something's going to complain. Would make sense to pass the title as anything but a string, really. For an H3, now we need to look at what an H3 is used as. It could... Okay, so let's see across the project what I use the H3 component as. And there's only a few locations. I'm passing whatever question is here. So question is a string. Bookmark this page. This is the pricing, the order summary page. Stay in the loop. And do you have any questions about your order? I assume is fine. If we say, okay, H3, it's still a React node because a string as we pass it there is a React node. Children, React node. This would be a bit faster if I knew what I was doing, but alas, this is where we are at. Children, come here, children. Okay, that seems to have taken care of all the children, and we are manually going to run the type check again. We are down to 94 errors. That's less than that's 7 less than we had before. I call that a success. Thank you. No, we're gonna keep going. We are going to keep going, of course. Now we have the pricing TSX that shows up a bunch. To make this easier going forward, like when I don't want to, as I did earlier, just end up anywhere on this in this page, in this list of errors. It's probably easiest if I take them from bottom to top. And I already encounter one that I do not understand. So we are going to take some from the bottom, and then we're going to continue until ad infinitum. So we're gonna, I'm gonna make this easier for both of us. And I'm going to stick to VS Code. Let's go to the pricing TSX page. Pages, pricing TSX. Ah, okay, you're complaining about something in line 149. So down here. I am mapping over... Okay, that's cool, that's fun, that looks good. I'm mapping over FAQ entries. How are we getting FAQ entries? FAQ entries are being passed to the pricing component. And because this is next, this will be from one of the functions down here. We're getting it from the get static props, I bet. Yeah, this returns the FAQ entries, and we're getting them right here. We're building the FAQ entries by reading all the FAQ. We're reading markdown files from the file system. So at this point, FAQ entries are, what are they? They are objects, because when we map over all of these files, we return some data, content, HTML, slug, and order. So somewhere here, I need to tell it what an FAQ entry looks like. How I do that? How do I do that? So I have a few types in here already. Don't I have a types DTS? That's the wrong one. DTS. Next env. No, that's not it. Didn't I have some types on here that I can now shamefully copy from? Here's config. Next env. No. Where did I have that? Okay. No. Where are you? I am going to check that over here in my other project. So let's go to GitHub, and this, because it's private, allow me to check this off screen. That is a, I'm not signed in. Unlock, you are going to look at my fingerprint now. Cool. Sign in, yes. Now, and I thought I had types defined here. Global. No, that's not it either. That is okay, found it. So what I did in this other project, and we're gonna just repeat it because what worked once might work again. I had a directory called types. I'm gonna add a directory called types. Not inside of Prisma. Inside of, how do I just add a directory here? Types. And in here, I am going to add an index.ts file, which is where I will house all my custom types. Index.ts. What I did over there. Export interface. Like I'm just gonna copy most of what I see over here. Export interface, and we're gonna call it. Seems to be a convention. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like please, honestly, really do. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that interfaces we prefix with I, and I think I want. Do I want? What's the difference between an interface and a type? Right. This is where I don't know what really to do with TypeScript, because could be a type that I want now. So I'm gonna go export. It's not called interface script. I'm just gonna guess. Export type and FAQ entry. Because remember, we were talking about FAQ entries, and each FAQ entry is an FAQ entry. Yeah, okay, that didn't say anything. I see here when I hover over this, I get TypeScript types that tell me there's a string called content, there's a string called HTML, there's a slug of any type, which is which we're gonna change. And there is an order, which is a number, which is what we have down here. Content, HTML, slug, order. So does anything change when I define a type here? If you know TypeScript, you're probably gonna shout at me now, which is fine because I am learning HTML. Let's say HTML is a string. Let's say slug is a, let's actually not mess it up. This is a string. This is a string, and order is a number, right? This is what this returned. Content string, HTML string, slug, any. So if I just remove the any from the slug, that would tell me that I'm doing, okay, this clearly is not working. This isn't working, and we are going to ask the internet for help. I started looking into this, but we're actually just gonna open the basics of the TypeScript manual and start from zero. I have an object that I want to define the type of. And this is kind of what we have. For me, it's not a user, it's an FAQ entry that has two properties, name and age. and when we do user.location, that would return undefined. So this is their example showing us, hey, this JavaScript bad because you could try to access something that doesn't exist. And TypeScript good because TypeScript tells us doesn't exist because it infers the type of this object to be named Daniel and age 26. So to have a name which is a string and an age which is a number, which is good. Now show me how to change that. Okay, you're not. This fine, this cool. This cool. Show me how to define types on objects. So this is where we define types on function parameters. It's cool, we're gonna get to that later, definitely. Here we can define this as interface date. That's good to know. Apparently this date isn't a type, date is an interface, so we might change what I might change what I just did. Erase types. Okay. See? Someone has never done this before. This looks overly intimidating. Everyday types. Cool. The primitives, string, number, and boolean. I guess as much, because string and number I've already encountered in what it did for me automatically. Arrays, I can define as like a string array or as an array with this generic of number. Any is a special type. Okay. Here they are defining an object, and in the declaration, let object colon any equals the object. And what I did is I tried to slap this any at the end of this. Okay, that's a Twitch warning. Cool. Okay. So we might try. Let's jump back into VS Code. So instead of returning it here directly, let's say you are a const FAQ entry. And then here, let's return the FAQ entry, which would mean that I could give you your type here. Because where they said any before, could I just do that? What would they give me? Okay, that would tell me that FAQ entries are an any array. It's an array of anything. Cool, so let's say content is a string and HTML is a string. Now it's complaining about the slug because the slug is missing in the type. The slug I want to be a string also. Slug string. And the order I want to be a number, which it can't get automatically from parse int. Because okay, so as soon as I define a type, I need to be exhaustive. I need to give it everything. It won't just assume that this is a number anymore. I have to tell it if this has these 4 attributes. I can't just add random things to it, which is why this probably won't make it very happy. Because what I'm saying here is there will be, I'm reading a markdown file, and I'm extracting the content, and I'm extracting the front meta of these files. Let's look at one. Let's look at what we're working with. So this is one of these files. It's giving me the content. This I'm extracting with gray matter, I think is the plugin. And it is also giving me some front metadata, which we are getting as data here. And by spreading it into this object, I'm taking everything that is in the front meta and I'm pushing it into this object that I'm returning. So that if I did is nice, true, this would show up as well. And I wouldn't have to change the type. That can't really make TypeScript happy, can it? Because I just learned that it needs me to be exhaustive. And if I can just add any random stuff. Is it 10:30? Okay, time to go to bed now. I'm gonna keep going for a bit, but it's bedtime for where I am at. Any random stuff, I could add that, and this would automatically be spread into my FAQ entry here. But if I do the TypeScript thing and I stick to it, then I can't do that anymore. I can't take just anything from the front meta. I have to be explicit. So I would have to say, instead of giving me data, let's say const, I need the title from the data, and then I would pass a title here. And now it tells me I don't know what title is. Of course you don't, because I didn't tell you that title can be a string. And looking at the other files that I have, so we looked at one of the markdown files. I have a title here, only a title here, only a title here, only a title here, so that would be fine. That would cover these four, which only have a title. This is what really my FAQ entry is made up of. But now we don't want to repeat this all over the place, and I started creating a type for this in my types. No, not this one. In this one. And we saw earlier that if date is an interface, maybe this is an interface. Honestly. And that would mean I deleted a bit too much here. If I define my FAQ entry here, now how do I get it into the pricing? Because I want to say now this is an FAQ entry. Oh, I'm gonna, sure. This is why we are in VS Code in the first place. Let's have it imported for us. How do you get the FAQ entry now? Did you get it? You got it from types. Cool, but you are getting it from types. How does this import path work? How does that work? Because wouldn't that... How's it making this a package? How does it know that this is the directory types? What is my... I'm very confused. Okay, so I'm confused because I am in the pages directory on the pricing.tsx file. And it's importing something just from straight up types, which looks like an external dependency, like fs, like gray matter, like path, like react. How does it know that this is now local? I'm gonna keep it. I don't believe, like this doesn't seem, but we're gonna see what it's gonna complain about. And now my FAQ entries are no longer this long object of content HTML slug and title. They are now recognized as FAQ entries. So I only had to define it down here, really. I wonder if there's a way to do those at once, in one operation. To return the FAQ entry here, this might be where the as keyword comes into play. This is where we're going to do some as play, or we're going to keep it as that for now. Now the pricing page receives FAQ entries any. Why do we... Okay, so it's not clever. Okay, of course, because TypeScript cannot know that this component always gets its properties from this function. They are not connected. TypeScript has no idea. Next has an idea. TypeScript can't know. Even though we're returning props FAQ entries here, how would they? And that's fine, because we can pass them as we did before, FAQ entries. And you will be an array of FAQ entry. Will be an FAQ entry array. That maybe. So the squiggly line's gone. It's still complaining, and it's not even, okay, perfect. It's not even complaining, because this is where we started. It's not even complaining about this map function over here now, because now it knows if FAQ entries are an array of FAQ entries, then each element that we map over has the attributes HTML, slug, and title. We don't need to define that again. In one location I had to give it the type. That's actually pretty convenient. Okay, point for TypeScript. I give you that. Let's run the type check across the entire application again. and we are down to 90. That's less than 101. We have made 11 progress. 11 progress is good. I don't know what it wants me to do about this. Okay, so the problem here is the file name match. So this function, it reads all files in this directory here, which contains right now 4 files. It's 4 markdown files. And they are named in a way where it's always the number, like the order of this item, dash a slug. Thank you for the follow. That's cool. I hope to make this worth your while. If there's any feedback you have, if I'm doing something stupid, just let me know. I am trying to figure this out as I go along. So this is made up of the order dash a slug of the FAQ entry. And I wanted to match that. So I wanted to split this and get the order. Oh, I call them order and slug here already. The way I did that was with a regular expression. Okay, let's zoom in here for a second. The regular expression matches, and I want to show you something. Why does this keep popping up? It matches for, begins with, so the caret, the carré, let's do more French. It matches for beginning of this text, so beginning of the file name, then something. I'm going to look at that next. And we need this file to end on .md, and the $sign is just, this is the end of the string. Then in parentheses, we have a \d plus, which means give me at least, plus is at least. Give me at least 1 digit. I need this to contain at least 1 digit without any other symbols, without any letters, just a digit. And store that, store a reference to that. The parentheses will not show up in the file name because of course they don't. There is no parenthesis, there are no parentheses in here. Then follow that with a dash, and whatever comes after, non-greedily. So any character. Hey Cooper. My dog just heard me talking. Hey Cooper. He showed up and wants some attention because usually I'm not awake and talking at this hour. Später. Okay. Okay. If he looks at me with those eyes, I have to give in. I can't. I would put him on stream, but he would not enjoy that. Du kannst ihn ein bisschen chillen, wenn du magst. Chill ruhig, ich mach noch ein bisschen weiter. Sorry, where was I? And anything else, any other characters, 0 to more, also store those in a group. And then with, what's that called? What's that called when we do that with arrays? Is that also destructuring? I think that's also called destructuring. Calling this on a file name would give me an array of at least 3 entries. The item at index 0. What does match return then? Yes, exactly. Match returns 3 items. The first one is the string that it applied the function to. So the full file name. 1 dash whatever name of the file .md. And then the second entry is whatever it found as this group. And the third would be what it found in this. And because this is, even though this is digits, would be a string. How do I tell you that regex match array or null is not an array type? You would, okay, so this type. Okay, quick intermission. This is Cooper. He wanted to say hi after all. He is usually asleep at this time. So I'm gonna see if he will let me continue for a bit, or if I will have to Nah, I don't want to pause this now. We're going well here. And back to fertig. Nee, Cooper. Sorry, this makes me lose my train of thought. This function tells me that it returns a regex match array. Matches a string or an object that supports being matched against, and returns an array containing the result of that search, or null if no matches are found. Okay, fair enough. With a null, I get that. An array containing the results of that search. What is regex match array? Is there a way for me to go from this? Hey, Cooper. Super, chill down. Can you see him on camera? I think he's just off camera. He found a spot on the couch. Sorry for the... No, he's right there. Anyways. Is there a way for me to go from this definition that I see in VS Code to the type? Like, I want to see what. Give me more information on regex match array. Okay, maybe on the TypeScript documentation, regex match array. So if anyone, wouldn't you have information? Why do I end up on everyday types? Control click on the match function. Go to, oh, perfect. Okay. Oh, nice. Interface regex match array. Go to type definition. No type definition found for. So what I could do is I could ignore this. How do I force it to tell me you are two strings though? This is where I don't get the benefits of TypeScript when I'm working on stuff that only I will ever use and that no other developer is ever going to touch. Because I can make sure that the files in this directory are called in that manner. I can't expect other developers that add to that to also adhere to the same conventions that I have just made up. So I get that this could not apply. And I am pretty sure it would always have a value. Yeah, good question though. When would it not? It would not have a value if I changed the naming of these files. If this didn't start with an order anymore, this would fail, this would break, and this would not be good. Now, is that something that I would cover with TypeScript? Or is it something I would cover with, not really it's not unit testing any code, it's making sure that the files in my project are called what I expect them to be called. I'm tempted to leave it be for now. Okay, yes. I can put an exclamation mark after the closing parenthesis of the call. Oh, okay, it's like this call. Oh, okay. Now, awesome. Thank you for that information. Now, I will have to look up what that does. Ah, okay. I saw that before where I think I saw the opposite in the type definitions where a question mark would make it optional. And this now then would tell me that this always returns something. That means that was the problem because it understood that this is a string. It understood that those were strings, right? Order any... Okay, it didn't understand that those were strings. But now if I give it the exclamation mark, it does. You know what? That's good in my book. I'm not gonna fully learn all of TypeScript now, but this is excellent that you told me that just now. Basically, you tell the compiler that this will always have a value. That is cool. That is good. But I'm gonna find out more about that off screen because you're not gonna watch me read documentation now. Thank you though very much. That was cool. That was good. And let's continue. So we're down to 89 errors. We're already 12 better than when we started. What looks fun? What looks good? Get server-side props, binding element. Okay, that I think I can solve quickly. I have an order summary page, which is at order ID index. Okay, for those that missed it, this is a basic e-commerce, like you can buy something, and this is a page that shows you a summary of this is what you bought, this is your license key, this is where you can download files, and a lot of this looks familiar. This one we're not going to tackle today, no chance, because this is a UI package that I created that I have not written tests for, and if it now complains that it's missing tests for one, yeah, of course it's. I haven't. This is the first time I'm doing this really. This would be a next step. Let's see. VS Code gives me all this nice red over here. Get server-side props. This we saw just a minute ago. When we were in the what page was that? It was the pricing page. That was the pricing page. And over here, we exported the get static props as export const get static props, and like so. Here we are on get server-side props, but I think they have an equivalent here. So we can't export async function. We are going to export const get server-side props, get server-side props from next equals async params. You are now an arrow function. This is taken from the next.js documentation. It's good that I'm on dark mode, but I don't have the dark mode. TypeScript. Ignoring TypeScript. No, it's TypeScript. No, not this one. TypeScript. Get initial props. If you're using TypeScript, you can use the next page type for function components. Next page, maybe that's not what I'm looking for though. Get server-side props. It showed examples of here, get server-side props with TypeScript. For TypeScript, you can use the get server-side props type from next. And this is exactly the line that we just wrote. Let's copy it over here. And I could keep it at context. I am destructuring the params out of there, but it doesn't know that params contains an order ID. So this page has a dynamic path element. The order, what do they call it? Is it dynamic? It's a dynamic something or other. So where I put it in the square brackets, and I will get the order ID to do something with in my get server-side props. Now the generic get server-side props, which it just imported for us from next. Let's put you here. That doesn't know that this has an order ID on it. Did I not do that somewhere else? So let's check if somewhere else in this project I did that already. I did not. But I will be sneaky and I will check that in my other project that I have, because I thought I did that there. Get server-side props. Of course, that project doesn't have any server-side components. That wouldn't make any sense. So that's not it. But does the documentation have more information? If you want to get infer typings for your props, you can use get infer get server-side props type of got TypeScript, right? If you're not into TypeScript, like what does any of this mean? Infer get server-side props type, then more brackets, type of get server-side. What do they do with this? They use that on the page component, so that won't apply to my get server-side props here. Okay, so that seems to be an alternative way of typing the get server side props. If I wanted to keep this at the function, in the function version, I could also have it in further on the page level. Cool. Cool. But where is that? Can I now tell you that these params, oh, sorry, not used to the text being quite this gigantic. Can I tell you that you are an object that contains an order ID of string? That would be the most convenient though, right? Does not exist on, that seems to be the other way around. No, okay, that's not it. What is the default type here? And this is where it turns into gobbledygook, definitely. Type get server side props. P extends an object that has keys, that are strings, that contain anything. And then we have this object. And Q extends parsed URL query, which is a parsed URL query. Great. And also D, which extends preview data, which equals preview data. So I assume the context contains an object and a parsed URL query and preview data. I haven't worked with preview data in the context of next here. How do I type? I mean, that's a valid query though. How do I type get server side props context TypeScript next.js? Okay, and that's what software is. You look at questions on the Stack Overflows. I don't want to read the details of your code. Is this kind of what I'm looking for? Not 100%. No, not the reducer, not the store. That doesn't seem super related, and that doesn't look like something that I would have any success with at the moment. There's the context parameter, and it has params. Okay, how do I okay, of course, it didn't really complain about, nope, sorry, too many buttons on this keyboard. It didn't complain about the params, because it knows that the context has params. Has a thing called params, but it doesn't know that the params, which is a parsed URL query, that contains an order ID. I could guess now. No, that I don't guess. Let's not guess. How do I next.js TypeScript type params? Type params. Is that something you want me to do off screen? Does this look, no. Does this make me look weak? I don't know. Let's go through your examples. Oh, do you have a sample? That would be fun. That would be fun. Download starter code. You have an example here. Okay. They have a bunch of, that's probably the best source for what I'm trying to do. You have a bunch of examples. Like this is what Vercel, like the people at Vercel are excellent at. Because for most things, if you're sure it does, it would again do something like this. Const already params. Okay. I want to. Okay, cool. We might try that. For now, I want to explore what they have done here on the TypeScript on the Vercel official examples. They have demos for most things you'd want to do. They have things that help you, that show you how to set up AMP, which please don't. How to use Auth0, how to start a blog with comments, how to use all kinds of different headless CMS in there, how to have a custom server, how to just like it doesn't end. It's over 100. It's a couple of hundred easy. They're minimal. How to do MDX. They're all minimal, so it should be relatively easy to understand, like what is important here. How to use helmet. Now let's just, we probably have something that says TypeScript on it. Blog starter TypeScript, we're gonna explore that. Custom server, no, don't care about AWS Amplify, don't care about Electron, don't care about Expo, no, with Paste TypeScript, React MD TypeScript, no, with Stripe TypeScript, with TypeScript and with TypeScript types, maybe. So let's start with the example called with TypeScript. What do they have? They have a few pages with an API, the users API, and users pages. And let's start with the index page. We don't need to run it. This is empty, doesn't have the functions that we're looking for. If it's anything dynamic, it has to be on users, because if they have, okay, this is exactly the situation we are in. They have a page with a dynamic element here with the ID, and they have this. Now looks familiar. Get static props, get static paths. Not exactly, because we have server side, but I don't think that would be treated differently. And you have a get static paths here, get static props. Oh really? Okay, so this function gets called at build time on server side. Cool, yeah, that's what this is not about the TypeScript stuff at all. It won't be called client side, so you can even do direct database queries. Sure, they don't really type that. Why not? So the thing that is dynamic here is in these square brackets the ID, and this line we have almost identical in the code over there. They try stuff. They try to find data in their data, but sample user data probably is just imported, because this is a demo. They wouldn't, yeah, they're importing it from util sample data. This is where they would do database queries, but still, because okay, so they are looking for a person with an ID that matches whatever is passed in the URL, and because that could be a non-existent ID, they have to check, can we really find that? Otherwise, would find return an error? Maybe. I think it would return undefined then, if it doesn't find something in an array, because this is probably nothing more than an array. But to get the ID, they do params $ID. So let's first of all remove this destructuring here. Let's do const order ID equals params order ID. That feels like cheating. What did I really do now? How is TypeScript helping me here? Because I'm not, so, okay. Next.js knows that there is a dynamic element in the path, and that is called order ID in my case, because that's what it says in the square brackets. But TypeScript doesn't, and that's fine, because how would TypeScript know what Next.js does with this weird thing in the file path? TypeScript doesn't, even if it works on more than just this file. No way of knowing that, I assume. So now I am circumventing it. So this, if params was undefined, it would return undefined. I forget what the operator is called. So instead, okay, if I did this, it would tell me you can't get the order ID from something, because what if params? Okay, that was the problem in the first place. Was it? Is that what it complained about? Okay, that reads differently though. property order ID does not exist on type parse URL. That's what I was trying to fix, but that's not what they did in the official example. I was trying to tell it, hey, params does contain something called order ID. Now, if we don't do the destructuring here, params order ID, and without the question mark, it tells me, hey, params could potentially not exist. So you're trying to access a property on something that doesn't exist, and that would break. And it'd be bad if that broke. And that is what TypeScript wants to protect me from now. So by saying this here is optional, this if params doesn't exist, if params is undefined, you know what? Set the order ID to be undefined. And now it would have to complain going forward. Sweet, and it does. Was that okay? I just want to revert that to see if that error appeared before as well. Okay, it didn't. So see how the ID is not underlined here. If I go like this, order ID, then it tells me, hey, wait a second, you are, and this is a, I'm using Prisma in this. I am using Prisma to manage orders, and this basically is a database query. And the database query takes the order ID that I have in the URL, and it tries to find an element, tries to find a record in a Postgres database, but that wouldn't really matter here, that has a matching ID. Okay. ID, question mark, string or undefined. Type string or array of strings or undefined is not assignable to type string or undefined. Type string array is not assignable to type string. The expected type comes from property ID, which is declared here on type order where unique input. I think that last part is generated by Prisma. It is the same problem though, because if you try to destructure the params, you access a field in params that might not exist because params might be undefined. Yeah, I mean, sure, yeah, that's fair. I thought the error right, because if I told it what would be, yeah, right, it's the exact same problem. If I told it params definitely have something that is an order ID, it could still be undefined at the end of the day. So telling it that wouldn't really help me. Okay, thank you. Like this is excellent. I'm learning so much right now. So I just prefer this, like what this complained as, because this I understand. If it tells me the object could be undefined, then I understand how to fix it. But if it just tells me this doesn't have an order ID, then I kind of didn't know how to continue from that. And now, assuming that the order ID can be undefined here, trying to find an order with an undefined ID wouldn't do me any good. And the orders, oh, okay, you see in my head things are falling into place, because this is an order summary page. And I can't give you a summary of an order that I cannot find. And if I don't have an order ID, this would fail. Okay. Now I get it. Okay, I'm slowly, step by step, but very slowly, coming around to thinking that TypeScript might not be such a bad thing. Oh god, I have been a bad developer. I've been naughty. So here is now, because I know order ID could be undefined, I might want to react to that. Okay, good. Is it fair to check if order ID equals undefined? Is that sufficient? Not really. Is it? So I want order IDs to always be... do they have a type? I think they're UUIDs or CUIDs, so they are alphanumeric strings. They're definitely not numbers. do I want them to fit a certain pattern here? I do eventually. Chat is funny. I do eventually have the problem where someone could put any random order ID in the URL. They could go to /hello. Yeah, I was trying. No, that was safe. I almost caught myself saying something bad here. They could use something that's definitely not an order ID, and I don't want to show them the summary of an order that doesn't exist. And I could take it one problem at a time. I could just cover the case that order ID is undefined. If it's not, okay, let's wait. If order ID is undefined, let's see if this guard clause is enough to make TypeScript happy. If order ID is undefined, return. No, it's not. So what I wanted to do here. What are you complaining about now? And there it goes again. How am I supposed to... I'm not going to try to understand this now. But this doesn't strike me as super beginner friendly. Honestly, like this is just a bunch of characters and a big wall of them. I'm waiting for the day where this all just intrinsically makes sense to me, but right now this is what kept me from exploring TypeScript further. What I wanted to do. Yeah, a bit verbose. It's probably helpful, like if you understand what this all says, it's probably pretty good, and you can find exactly, oh, okay, this is the word that I need to look at. I don't know what line even is relevant right now, and telling me no quick fixes available doesn't make me feel very good. What I wanted to do is a guard clause where if this condition is happens, if this condition becomes true, then you know we'll just nope out of the function early and don't even continue. So I assumed that. No, that's probably different error, but I want to continue this train of thought real quick. If the order ID here is undefined, which it is if params is undefined, or if I'm just not getting anything. If I'm getting something, it won't be undefined. If I'm not getting anything, it will be undefined. And if it is undefined, then it's not null. Would it be? Could it? No. It will be undefined. If it is undefined, then I don't want to continue. I can't send you to that page because I can't give you the order summary of something that doesn't exist. Can I? Does next let me redirect you to a 404 here? Does it make sense to redirect inside of a get server side props? Honestly, I don't know. And I don't think that's the right question to ask right now. Can we return a valid get server side props? I can return a, okay. Yeah, I can return a valid get server side props, because if props, in this case I could give you an empty props object. The page itself wouldn't be happy because it's expecting all of this is paid and license key and order ID and path and product. So I'd have to catch that, or I'd have to give you, okay, valid would mean I'm passing you all of these. I'm just setting those to null. That it won't get rid of this arrow down here, I assume. Let's say if I gave you all nulls, don't worry, I'm not going to keep that. But would anything change? Null and null. Then I'd have to catch that on the page that these values don't exist, and I'd rather not have you on the page in the first place. I'd rather send you somewhere else than try to now in the component that ideally is as stupid as possible. Ideally, maybe throw an arrow. Yeah. I wonder though, because what really okay, so the situation this can happen in is you try to go to a URL of an order summary. and that order doesn't exist. And doesn't exist sounds a lot like 404 to me, right? There is, you requested something that I just don't have, and that's your fault. It's not a 500, is it? No, it's not a 500 error because you requested something that just isn't there. How naughty. How impolite of you to ask me something that I just don't have. So I think a redirect makes the most sense here. Who wants to watch me Google just can next.js redirect from getServerSideProps? I see I raised my hand, so let me do that. Just, I don't, next. Because throwing, what would throwing an arrow do? I'm curious now. Am I? That has to be covered somewhere. Okay, slow down. Take it one super tiny step at a time, because I don't think... Okay, going back to the official example. Like this, these of course are bare bones. There's not a lot in here. By returning props item, the static props detail component will receive item as a prop at build time. Cool. So they have a... in their page, their page is the static props detail. Static props detail receives item or errors as props. Okay, I can copy how to pass props, how to type props here. That's cool. Let's remember that for later. No, though, right? So what they're doing, if you can either, okay, their page has only optional properties. You either receive an item, which in this case, from the URL, I would assume is a user, and also optionally, you could receive errors, which is a string. Like, come on, if it's plural, make it an array of strings. That's beside the point, because this here says that both of those can be optional, which means neither of them has to exist. And then if it receives errors, render a layout and just print error on it. It doesn't have the right error code. I want it to, if it is an error, don't give, because if I do this and you request the order summary for an order that I don't have, then the status code is going to tell you 200, everything's fine, here's your order summary, and you see error. That doesn't make any sense. I want you to see, hey, something went wrong here, and I want the status code to reflect that as well. And that's not the task of the page itself. Like the static props detail or the... What? Why can I don't spend a lot of time on the GitHub interface. I didn't know I could click these now. References. I want the page to receive properties and to print a page based on these properties. I don't want it to be clever. I don't want it to have to do any redirects because it's a page. Ideally, all the logic happens inside of the get static paths, get static props, get static yada yada. The page is just the page. The page receives some stuff, and the page puts some stuff on the page. That'd be good. I prefer that. I don't want it to decide whether to show an error, because in this, okay, this is not an ideal. Do you have a more, like your next.js, do you have a more extensive scenario of a blog or anything that can potentially go wrong? Let's search for blog starter, blog. Any of these might have something. Pages. So a blog will have something dynamic in here with a slug. Cool. Get static props. This is cool that this is untyped. We don't care about TypeScript just to figure out how to solve this, how to approach this. But no, they are not catching, they're not covering, it not existing. Okay. Okay, what? Okay. They are kind of, because they are returning a post page here. And if this is a fallback page, this doesn't apply to this scenario, but with next, you have the get static props, and if you have the get static props, that means you can foresee what kinds of pages, like what pages you are going to need, because if you have a blog, you have your blog post somewhere. You probably have a bunch of markdown files, or you have a few entries in a database somewhere. You know how many there are. And next wants you then to also tell it what pages to pre-render. What are the URLs, what are the slugs that we are going to have to build pages for during build time. And we can do that here. There's also fallback false. So if someone uses a slug that isn't defined yet, do we want to show a fallback page or no? I'm not sure if the configuration here is the right way around, but on the page then they check, is the page we're on, is that a fallback page? And is the post slug not undefined? So did someone try to do a naughty? Did someone try to access a file, a blog post that we just don't have? In that case, they show an error page. In that case, they render an error page with a status code of 404. I want to see what that error page component does. Shortcut, just the letter T on GitHub gives me error page, gives me a way to... Okay, this is a bit more of a broader example. What? Where's the... Get going back. Error page. They are loading from... Okay, next error. What is next error? What is next error? Next error, custom error page. Yeah, maybe. Reusing the built-in error page. If you want to render the built-in error page, you can by importing the error component. That'd be fine. Okay, but they leave that up to the component. Might as well do that. But how does that work? The error component takes a title as a property if you want to pass in a text message along with a status code. If you have a custom error component, be sure to import that one instead. Next error exports the default component used by next.js. Okay, show me. Show me the money. Packages. So in the next.js, the big giant repository that also has the examples, we have the packages directory, and here I would expect it to have the... Let's look at next and error. Where is the next error? This could be it. Require dist pages underscore error. So do you have that committed here? You don't. Where's the error page? Error. Ah, that's why my search didn't work before, because I looked across the entire next.js repository, which is giant. Errors template tsx. Errors manifest JSON. Let's look at it. Why this error occurred? Where is the component? Export default. How do they usually define their components? export default function a how. What does the error? Oh no, it's not called error. It's called error page, isn't it? Error page. Was it? Was it? What time is it? They're importing error page from next error, but what they're importing this as doesn't really matter because it's a default export. They can import it under any name. I would like to see what that looks like. No code. Export default function error. Integration build output fixtures. No fixtures are not going to do me any good. Render error on module error. Integration tests. Integration tests. Examples. Examples. Integration tests. I'd like to see what they do with this status code. Do they just print it on the page? Or do they actually return it? I don't know. And I don't know if I want the page to be responsible for that at all. Okay, back to the original idea. I'm gonna do a quick Googling. Next.js redirect from which one? From the get server side. This only runs server side. Can I have you redirected from here? Redirect in get server side props. That's at least the same question as I have. Rest redirect is not a function. I don't want this to... do I need to make this a middleware now? The REST object of get server side props is of type HTTP server response and has no method named redirect. Whereas in API, the REST object is next API response having some additional helpers like the redirect method. That's the reason your code was working fine when it was there inside an API logic. But Next.js recommends this. Okay, you should not use fetch to call an API route and get server side props. Instead, okay, that is not helpful. So your approach is quite fine at its core, but for it to work, you'll have a slightly refactor your code. Next.js internally uses an API resolver middleware. Not what I... So get server side props. We know it does more than the params. We also get access to the request and the response. Here they custom. Thank you for checking in. I will probably give up soon anyways. This will be uploaded on the YouTubes tomorrow. I doubt I will be able to solve this. But talk to you soon, see you soon I hope. I will try to figure this one out and then I'm probably gonna call it a day. Rest status. Okay, so there is a response on the get server side props, which we can have a redirect on. What? They just said this doesn't. Let's do it. Let's do it params rec and res. Res dot. Okay, so does it understand what rec and res are on the get server side props? Rec and res. Honestly, I no, sorry, I'm gonna nope out of this. I'm gonna nope out of this at this point because I'm guessing, and guessing isn't entertaining, isn't fun, and I will have to come back to this error. Just fine. There was another one that we have to fix though, because this was about reducing the 101 TypeScript errors. Let's leave this one, let's accept that. That was a rabbit hole. And let's try to do this one, function order. We saw that earlier in there with TypeScript example. We are on the blog. blog starter TypeScript on the pages, on the posts, on the slug. Here they define, I don't know the difference between the type and the interface, but if that's what they do in the examples, sure, I can do that. Okay, so if we hover over that, it gets that it has all, okay, you can see that it gets all these properties passed to it, but all of them are any. Any isn't cool. For props, for page props, it's gonna be fine if we define them on the page itself. Anything that's reused across pages, I would still put into the types definition file. I'm gonna call the types definition file now. But because this is, the props won't be the same across pages, I'm gonna keep them in line here. And I would say then here that this is props. This is the order props. Is paid will be a boolean. And there's a difference between the lowercase and the uppercase b boolean. I don't know what it is. I'm gonna ignore it. And we have license key. Does not exist on type props. So license key always exists is a string. Pretty sure that was Bendo, right? And the order ID is also an alphanumeric string. And the path is a string. And the product is an object. The product is an object. And the underscore data I don't want to pass anyway. That was invisible data that I don't really want to appear on there. The product, oh, okay, in this case, the product is a string. So the product is just the product name. So let's call it that. Product name is a string. And product name instead, that'd be better then. Because if I hear product, I expect it to have a name, a price, a weight, a whatever. But a product name, I would expect to just be a string. Cool. Why is there empty lines here? What's this? What's this? Okay, this is not a TypeScript thing. This is a Git indication that I just removed some files. npm run type check. Let's see where we are. Down from 101 all the way to 83. Okay. Let's see if we can have another easy fix. I'm just going to take what I have now and I am going to apply it to a few other pages. Let's look at the licenses index page. That seems doable now. Licenses, the licenses page will get past licenses. But to stay consistent, because it's a page, it receives props, and the type props for this page is licenses, is a license array. License doesn't exist, so let's add it to the types index. Export interface license. I don't know what goes into a license, but it's a type now. And we are going to import license from, and that's not going to give me naming conflicts because the file and the thing in here is called licenses from, and you called it types before TypeScript. Import license, yeah, that is a named import from types. Cool, that one you're happy with, but you don't know about the conditions, the description, the title, and the path. And that is returned by the get all licenses API call. Because we're in get static props, not get server side props, we are, okay, we can do that on time. So I know that my licenses will have to contain all of these. have to contain conditions, description, title, and path. So some of these I know what they will be because they will most likely be strings. Conditions I don't know. So I don't remember. This has been a while. So get all licenses is a function that pushes a license. You will be of type license, please. No, wait, okay. So I can give this a type in many places now. I can do what I did earlier. I could pass the const license is a license and import it not from Prisma. Do I have a license in my database? Oh. I have a license, but that's a different type. That is not... Okay, so I'll have two... Oh, sorry. I will have two types called license. I will have one that reflects what's in the database and one that reflects what's in the code. And the type conditions any content string path. String is missing the following properties from type license, description, title. Get license by slug is a helper function that takes a slug, and let's say that slug is a string, and it returns, so const license, what we did earlier, license of type license equals this stuff, and then return license. So conditions, content, and path. Content is again taken from the markdown, so content will be a string. Content will be a string. Conditions is, what is conditions? Conditions is, let's look at one of the licenses. One of the licenses, they are also defined as markdown files. Here I have a free license, and conditions are, I doubt TypeScript's going to be very happy with me here. Okay, I think I saw that earlier. Conditions is an array, so is a list here in markdown in the front meta, with keys that are random strings, and the values are Boolean. Let's see if we can make that work. Conditions will be an array of license condition. Yeah, sure. Let's say I have license and I have license condition, which doesn't exist on my type. Export interface license condition. And key is string and value is Boolean. Does that work? Would that do a thing? Because if it does, I learned some TypeScript today. And this isn't, well, this part is complaining. It's missing the following properties from type license, description, and title. Description and title. Do I have those in a description and title? Yeah. Description and title are both defined in the front meta. Okay, this is now where it complains, because now this is typed and I'm spreading the data, the rest of the front meta in here, but it doesn't know that this contains license and description and title. So I have to const description title equals data. So destructure that from the data, and instead of spreading data in here, description and title. And because I am anal about that, let's order that alphabetically. This error is gone. What's this now? Argument of type license is not assignable to parameter of type never. Never will I ever understand how TypeScript works. What you doing to me here? What are the licenses? Can I just tell you here that you are an array of licenses? This word seems wrong now. If I look at where just license, this combination of letters no longer makes any sense. And that didn't seem to make any difference either. Is not assignable to parameter of type never. Not gonna do. I don't need to go to 0 TypeScript errors today. That wasn't the goal anyways. This, I see, this is good. Data conditions flat, so I am taking the data. I'm taking the conditions of the data and I'm reducing it. I don't know how to tell it now that this is an array that looks like that. So I'm not going to, and I'm going to run the type check again. Ideally, I'd be at, let's say, 75. Let's make it 75. I didn't expect to solve all TypeScript errors in a few hours. Member conditions implicitly has an any type in my types that I defined. And here I now have this custom type license. So the conditions are a license condition array. I'm gonna assume that's cool. Let's go to the license sub page. Let's do one more page and fix at least some of the errors. I'm not gonna commit to fixing all of them now because it is 11:30 at night and I'm trying to learn new technology. That's cool. So this is the license page. Some stuff now already feels a lot easier. Type props equals description, without looking at it much, will probably be a string. MDX source, I don't know. I'm gonna nope out and say any. Path will be a string. And title will have to be a string. And you are now, these props are now of type props. Cool, that's some complaints gone. Params implicitly has an any type that we saw earlier. Export async get static props of type get static props equals async params. You are now an arrow function because that is what they do in the movies, in the documentation. Export const and get static props. Can you please import from next? Import get static props from next. Yep. Get licensed by slug. I'm gonna go ahead and what's your problem? Object is possibly undefined. Okay. So I am not gonna fix that today though. Because what I did earlier is I said the order ID could be undefined on the props. Now I'm saying the slug could be undefined because this is the dynamic part of the URL. But in this function here, get licensed by slug, I expect it to be a string. I can't find a license without a slug. So this cannot be undefined. Do I want this to also return a 404? Basically, yeah. I think I do. I think this is then, because this doesn't have the correct values, you're calling it with something that you shouldn't. Please call it with a slug. if you're calling it without a slug, I have to send you to the bad place. I have to send you to the 404 page. So that's something that I need to learn how to do. For now, this is fine here, but it will... Like, if this is undefined... If this is ever undefined... you could go into the URL and you could change it to something. And that I need to... I don't know if I need to, but that I want to catch. Let's see where we are at with the TypeScript errors. And we are down to 75. I could call it a day here. Let's give it another quick look to see if anything obvious stands out that we might want to fix. No. Pages, okay, that we can do. Let's see if we can get down to 70. This page will now look familiar, like this is the same pattern we've had before. Type props equals description string mdx source. Okay. I skipped that earlier. And title is a string. You're of type props. So mdx source is something that is generated by this function get mdx source, which calls serialize, which is a helper function that what does that return though? That returns a promise, that returns an mdx remote serialized result. Some brackets, record. Some more symbols, string, unknown. Oh, yeah, I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna stick with any. I'm gonna have an any in there. Because I'm gonna trust that the library does what I expect it to. Params. This one is the same export const. Get static props is of type get static props from next, please. Is async params. You are an arrow function now. This could be undefined. And it's the problem of get page by slug. I can't get a page without a slug, so this will complain again. Okay. Slowly it is starting to make sense. But I think that's about as far as I'm going to take it today, right? npm run type check. Down to 70. I mean, we got rid of 31. Let's pretend it didn't just take me a few seconds to calculate that. Could probably do the same. Like, I think the simple ones almost taken care of now. There's one more that's bothering me. There's one more that's bothering me. Okay. I want to figure out a helper function in the lib API licenses. Here where I added the type of license earlier, and when I have multiple licenses, I want to sort them. I want to sort them by their order. They have an order property defined in the front meta of the markdown file. I want to sort them, but licenses is of type never array. That's very Peter Pan of you. Why are you a never array? There's dozens of us, dozens. But you are a license array. Okay. Okay, now you are no longer a never array, but I still can't push to you. Argument of type license not assignable to parameter of type never. I do something. Did I not fix that for the FAQ yet? Is that a new problem? Is that a problem that I have not had to solve today? On the pricing page, how do I get the FAQ entries? No, that's a different... Why is that different though? On the licenses. Okay, let's comment that out so it's not everything's red. Oh, wait, okay, what do I get here? I get slugs. I get slugs, which I await. So I have a list of slugs here. Why do I have to reduce them? Because getting each license is an asynchronous operation again, and I don't know where I found this magic incantation. I don't know why you're never array. So this one I'm gonna leave for some other time. I wanted to change this line down here because licenses is an array of licenses. Property order does not exist on type license. Why not? Oh, okay, good, cool, good. So I have a bunch of properties in the front meta of this markdown file: title, description, conditions, and order. And I used to spread them into this license object. I no longer spread them because I said I need to do that manually. I took description and title. There is also order. This forces me to be explicit. Not just take whatever you find, but I expect a license to have an order. And I'm fine with that. That makes sense. So in my type definition, I have to say order, and you will be a number. I want you to be a number. Can you be a number? I don't know if it comes out of the markdown file as a number. I don't know how to check that. Is the plugin that I use to read the front meta intelligent enough to see this is defined as a string, this defined as a string, this defined as a number? For more on that, stay tuned for next time. So I'm gonna leave that as is. I'm gonna commit that, npm run type check. We're not at 101 anymore. We're down by quite a chunk. We're down to 68. 68 is pretty good. Would have liked the 69, but at least it's not the 70. Got rid of a bunch of errors, and we can continue from here. I'll try to find out if we can redirect to a 404 page in the get server side props. Like, how do we handle users accidentally or with malicious intent trying to access an entity, an order that we don't have? Maybe we can do that as well next time. If not, that's where we continue. Thank you. I think Ben should be Jesus. I don't know. Thank you for helping me. That was super successful today. I mean, I started out, I've used TypeScript before, didn't really know what I was doing. Now at least I feel like I'm getting to know it intimately on my own, where I have higher chances of it making sense eventually. We'll continue this soon. The recording of this will be up on Twitch for, I think, 2 weeks. And it'll be up on the YouTubes tomorrow. Thank you. Have a good night, and talk to you soon. Bye bye.